Welcome to Get Moving TV. I'm Dr. Chris Landon and I serve as your host. Here in Ventura County, we had a set of unusual events some 10, 15 years ago where we developed the VACE life shirt. We were able to, every breath you take, every move you make, we were watching you, ended up on the International Space Station. And then 2008 occurred and the economy fell apart. But I've kept in with telemedicine throughout since 1969 when we moved a chest x-ray 2 kilobytes at a time from Alaska to Stanford. So I've kept in there. Now I'm a digital health opinion leader for some companies. So it lets me go to conferences. And at one of those conferences, I had the incredibly thrilling event of meeting one of the best salespeople I've ever known, Neil Friedman, who could also sell a refrigerator to an Eskimo, and thank goodness he wants to sell his health. And where does health, what is your device, and how can you put health into the palm of my hand? What?
Well, I think we have to take a few steps back and understand how this whole phenomenon has happened and this disruptive technology, and it was really started by Fitbit. And they really created what we call today the consumerization of healthcare. And that's an awareness by the consumer of their vitals, and also the consumer has wanted to take control and decide who and what they want to give to who. And that's really what has happened, and it has matured considerably to the point of where today, for example, we have a device like this that in 20 seconds does an EKG, respiration, heart rate, blood oxygen, systolic blood pressure, and rate pressure product.
And do we appear from a Star Trek, that sounds like the tricorder.
Well, it's been nicknamed the tricorder, so you're right on the money, and the press has called it that. But what happens is that this is really an educational tool, and all of our devices have really become educational tools. And when I interact with our customers, it's incredible to hear what they've learned from these devices and how they're taking these devices, finding out how to increase, essentially extend their life, essentially, and know more about themselves, and do the research to find out about themselves and how they can extend their lives. So this, consumerization has really changed healthcare, and now we're seeing it within the medical community. I started in this business 5 years ago, and initially when I got involved in it, nobody wanted to talk to me. Today, everybody is clamoring to get into this technology because telehealth, as you mentioned, which goes all the way back to the 60s, has finally come about where there's a recognition that in order to potentially take care of everybody in our country, we're going to need telehealth. Because so many people are in rural communities, for example, and can't get to a doctor. Devices like this offer the ability to an individual to take their metrics, to go on some HIPAA-compliant telehealth site, speak to a doctor who may be 200 miles away. This doctor then looks at their metrics using the metrics that are achieved from a device like this and decides whether they can be taken care of where they are or they have to be moved to a facility.
Well, one of the things I tell my patients is, I get a set of vital signs. Boy, that's 15 seconds. I know what your weight is for 15 seconds and your heart rate and blood pressure and your oximetry and so forth. And then there's the rest of your life. And so I'll send them home with the O2 Vibe, which you're wearing on your wrist there. Right. Because I'll say, look, if I come over to your house and I look in your window at night to see how you're doing, you call the police. I have to wear that stupid ankle bracelet again. I can't go around to elementary schools. So it really lets you into their lives, but with privacy too. And I think that's been our concern with some of the elderly. Correct. We don't want to have a video camera in. I don't think we want to know what grandma and grandpa are doing sometimes, but we worry about them. We want to know if they've fallen. We want to know if they're have pneumonia coming. So are there any, a device is one thing, but is it hooked up to anything that helps predict before it happens?
That's a great question because there's an abundance of data today. And one of the things that's stopping this technology, or the barrier you might say, one of the complaints of physicians is there's too much data. So what we've incorporated into our system is a index which is called the Rothman Index, which we have coined the Personal Wellness Index. And this is an algorithm that actually was created 10 years ago, which is FDA approved today. And through a combination of taking the metrics on this device and answering 14 questions on our app, a patient gets a score of their health and gets a very nice dashboard of it. But their provider now has the opportunity to actually see their dashboard, but also see any change within 14 different areas within their body, and can actually see a trend in their health before it happens. So with this index, we now can really determine what is going on with somebody ahead of time and potentially, again, mitigate that problem at home, keeping them out of the hospital. The key today is trying to take care of people at home, not to bring them into a hospital environment.
You know, and something I think with the Rothman Index, it started out was grandma got her heart valve replaced,
Exactly,
and then ended up dying, and the boys are going, how could you, that's my grandma, what happened? And they asked to look at the hospital records, and the hospital goes, oh, you're gonna sue us. They go, no, we just wanna know, why couldn't you tell yourself that grandma went home too early, that something was going on? And I think part of it, they can't, because we had one of the brothers here at UC Santa Barbara, was just finishing half their meals, that she didn't finish all of her meals, and that's almost more important than anything a doctor or nurse can come up with vital signs.
She actually died of dehydration. And because so often, unfortunately, in a hospital environment, the nurse who's watching you in the beginning is not the nurse who's watching you at the end. So we need some form of continuity in assessing that person's health. And that's what the Rothman Index gives to that nurse when she's in that room.
And on the way home, too.
Yes.
So we have so many, the opioid problems with the elderly. It doesn't take much to knock you out. I take care of people recovering from pneumonia, and they're pushed out of the hospital faster, pushed home on oxygen, pushed home on IV antibiotics. Mm-hmm. So you have a number of devices here to talk a little bit about the O2 Vibe. What Vibe? What are you playing?
Okay.
Vibraphone? Or?
Well, the O2 Vibe is a terrific little device, and there's an awareness that's happening. You know, I believe that words become hot. Okay, and in the last 10 years, you know, we started, of course, with obesity, and then we had diabetes and metabolic syndrome, and now the hot word that we're all hearing is sleep apnea. And there's become an awareness now that sleep apnea is an affliction that affects a lot of people, and the majority of people don't even know they have sleep apnea. This particular device is made to measure your blood oxygen, which is one of the causes of sleep apnea, so that you can set a threshold on your app. Let's say we set a threshold of 90% blood oxygen. You're sleeping, and while you're sleeping, your blood oxygen drops below 90%. And what it does is it vibrates. And by vibrating, it gets us to move and inhale oxygen. And it's a very, very simple method, but yet a method to help you inhale and take in oxygen when your oxygen drops below. Now, the other incredible thing that has happened here, and it all happened organically, was that we have people that have COPD, pulmonary fibrosis, cystic fibrosis using this device because you can adjust the level of the SpO2. So for example, somebody with COPD could drop the level on their app to 88%. It vibrates. They know when they need some oxygen. We have a cute story on our website of a golfer who was playing actually with this device on his hand, and it vibrated. And he took a hit of oxygen, and he writes that he finished 9 holes.
Well, and the other thing with the CPAP, the pressure into the nose, 6 out of 10 people put it back in their drawer. They don't want to do that. And I have patients who go, okay, well, it vibrates. Now I know to turn or play my game on my computer. I've used the watch, and along with it looks like you and I are wed there. You have a ring there as well.
Well, this is the next technology that's coming. And this technology essentially will be doing the same thing as the O2 Vibe, but will give you the ability also to monitor your exercise at the same time. So again, we're checking your blood oxygen, your pulmonary status, and this will be the next device on the marketplace.
Well, I modified myself, and we have screenshots I guess I could share, where my obstructive desaturation index was not in a good range, and then I got a little cold. It got worse. I go, I'm near death here. That's not good. So I got my 6 pillows out, and suddenly I'm back in a normal range. So it really helped me to rearrange my own life.
You know, I hear stories from people that wear the O2 Vibe that are just wanting to figure out what is causing these drops in their blood oxygen. So they actually have cameras in their room where they're actually timing their sleep against the time on the device and figuring out how they're laying and adjusting accordingly so that they won't have the problem.
Well, just in the remaining couple of minutes here, we have an orb from War of the Worlds.
Exactly. This is a new development. This is not on the marketplace yet, but I think it's going to be revolutionary. This uses ultra-wideband radar. And what will happen with this device is you'll put it at your bedside, next to your bed. It will, if there's an individual in bed, it will actually take all the metrics of that individual as they're in bed. So that for people that unfortunately have some afflictions and stuff that don't have the opportunity to be properly monitored, this will really help. And additionally, if you fall out of bed, it will notify somebody, and it also has a built-in SIM card so that we will be able to talk back and forth and to make sure you're okay.
I've dealt with that technology before with, actually it's an Israeli technology, and we were able to differentiate two different people in bed, and it would only take the vital signs on one.
It targets that one.
Yeah, so
right.
It was really to say, is that a rat coming into the tent or an enemy soldier?
Right.
And so we were able to stretch that out. So it's just very pleasurable to see it come back, because they sucked it back out.
It's interesting, and it's so interesting what you're saying. So many technologies that we've all played with early in our careers, and I think that Chris and I have shared that same situation, tend to come back 10 or 20 years later, and this, as Chris is mentioning, is an old technology.
Yeah. Well done. Well, Neil, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We'll make certain that people can contact BodiMetrics.
Thanks.
And have their health in the palm of their hand.
Thank you, Chris.
So we'll be right back. Ventura, welcome back. Well, the second half of the show, we get to have Luke Scott with us, who's with a Concierge Nursing Direct.
Yeah.
So we were just talking a little bit about how you got into it, but let's start at the beginning. What kind of education do you have? Because we're in an educational institution here, and you ended up following a passion. But where did your passion start?
So I was in my undergrad, and I got my exercise physiology degree, and I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I played sports, and I went to Germany and played soccer for 5 years, and I came back and got my doctorate in physical therapy.
So no soccer injuries. There's no interaction with physical therapy with you. So did you have a season-ending injury or just a series of?
I had a couple pretty bad injuries. I missed almost an entire season in college. And I've probably seen a physical therapist over 300 times, as a patient. So I was quite versed with the different styles and different types of therapists, and the good ones really inspired me to want to help people and empower them and get them back to doing what they love to do.
Well, there's two parts, really, and I know you oversee some 200 nurses, and really trying to keep them involved from a nurturing standpoint, but also the physiology. So how did you balance that out when you go in? Do you know exactly what a person's ankle looks like from every ligament, or how do you go about balancing out the knowledge but also what happens up in the head there too?
Well, we have to do a comprehensive assessment, so we need to evaluate their medical condition and their past medical condition. Also, we do a functional analysis, making sure that the patient isn't at risk for falling, pressure sores. But there's such an important component of the psychosocial, making sure that they have the right caregiver, the right person, the nurse taking care of them. All of those things come together and create, the continuity of care.
Well, let's take a step backward, because you're really talking about your Concierge Nurse Direct itself.
Yes.
So tell us about your business. How long has Concierge Nurse Direct been in business, and what kind of things can you offer?
So we've been around for 14 years, and we do 24-hour nursing care, 24-hour caregiving, whether it be an RN or an LVN, and we have all licensed employees, and they provide high-level care for individuals that are needing it in their homes. So,
Well, I know when UCLA opened up their, I think it was the John Wayne Cancer Institute, one of my friends was there, and he said, of course you bring your own nurse. If you really want good care, you're going to have your own nurse there. So do you provide nursing services in a hospital as well?
We've done a little bit of that, but mostly when they go into the hospital and they want to come home, patients do better at home. Research shows they're happier, they less risk for diseases. So we get notified from the hospitals or doctors that are the primary care physicians, and we help facilitate them coming home, getting the level of care that they need, reporting that back to the doctors, the hospital, whether it's the urologist, the oncologist, the cardiologist, making sure that everybody has a clear idea what's going on with that patient and can provide help the most appropriate way.
Well, you're right. Hospitals are scary places. I mean, you don't know what's on your food tray and what Mrs. McGillicuddy's Klebsiella enterobacter is hiding behind that door handle somewhere. So that sounds like an excellent proposition. So where do your nurses come from, though? Are they trained here in the United States, or?
Yeah. So they're all licensed. We do background checks. We do extensive, looking into what they're good at, their skill set. We have a lot of ICU nurses, ER nurses, and and we also provide therapy as well. So we have therapists, and that we look at their CBREs, which is the certification, to make sure that they have their license and no citations or so forth. So everything is very to the highest standard.
So a good standard of care, and then do you do patient satisfaction surveys, and it's the family too that's involved, and the doctor, and a lot of people involved. You have to keep happy.
Yeah, you really when you think about what your customer is it's the family, the doctor, the hospital, the patient. So there's a lot of components that you have to make sure are satisfied, and we do a lot of call feedback and make sure that we're providing the right level of care. What's different about us is that when we sense something that isn't going well, or that they might not be getting along with, whether it's a nurse or a CNA, we immediately bring somebody in and try to find the right person, because they really are a part of the family. So these cases can go on 3 to 5 years sometimes. So.
Yeah, when people are sick, they're cranky. I mean,
they are.
Yeah, I've had home nursing for my wife, as we're discussing, and for my father. So what's the pain point? So when I look at businesses, any business, because we have an innovation center here, and I get presented all kinds of different businesses. What pain point are you trying to solve? What problem is there? Gosh, I mean, hospitals have nursing, and so what pain points come out where what kind of pain am I looking at in my life, or caring for my mother or my father? What is it that you're solving?
We're making people feel comfortable at home. We're taking away the stress of knowing, is my mom getting the right level of care? Is something going to happen? There's that, and then we empower the patient to be in their own environment, to feel taken care of. It's really to make sure that if anything isn't going right, that we immediately can step in and to prevent further problems from occurring.
Well, when we talk about prevention, especially nowadays, I see finally that one of these opioid drug distributors is, probably going to go to prison. They're being charged with major crimes. And do you find this kind of service really helps with pain and pain control? I mean, so many people end up with Vicodin, OxyContin, whatever addiction, because they just keep trying to feed the pain. But so much of it is in your head too. It's above the eyebrows.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, if you sit and think about your pain all day, it's going to get worse. I mean, we actually create more neurotransmitters to intensify those signals. When you move, when you have interaction, social interaction, those things can distract and also help create a positive feedback loop, which can break that chronic negative feedback loop of pain that can intensify over time. So there's a lot of value that we can offer as well with that.
So how much does this kind of service cost? Because for hospitals, they're trying to prevent readmission to the hospital. And what we found with people being pushed out of the hospital so fast, the mortality rate for certain diseases is going up. If you have bad heart disease, bad lung disease, and you're being pushed out and tried to keep from that readmission in 30 days, and don't go back in the hospital, stay home, and now we've seen the backlash to that.
Yeah.
So we're saving money, but we have to spend money to save money too. So what is you're supporting 200 nurses who are on a registry. That's got to be a difficult business proposition too. It's, obviously it comes from a good heart and a good place and better for the family, better for the patient, but in the end, bills have to be paid too.
Yeah, it costs $90 an hour for an RN, $48.50 for an LVN. It's not for everybody, but it really, the value in the longevity, the ability to help these clients, especially after a surgery. I mean, if you've never had a surgery before, it's scary. And just to offer that assistance for a week and make sure that they feel like, okay, if anything happens, I have my nurse here and they're going to take care of me and they're going to let the doctor know. It's hard to put a price tag on that, security that you have with it.
Yeah, if some nut knocked me out in an alley and two guys with knives started stabbing me, I would really want some nursing,
right?
Nursing at home. Well, do you see this? How do you see this moving into the future? Are you going national? There's state laws where you can't cross state lines. You have to pick up individual nurses for their state licenses in each place.
There's concierge nursing everywhere, and our goal is to be the lead providers in Southern California. So we want to make sure that all the people that can benefit from our services know about us and can receive these services. As far as the funny thing about what we do is it's not that much different than what used to happen. You see in the movies, the doctor comes, the nurse comes, and it checks on patients and even delivers babies and things like that. Somehow we've moved away from that model, and we're kind of going back to the old days where your nurse and your doctor would come in and stay with you and give care if need be and be there to make sure that nothing else transpired.
So how are you, I have a book called Doctors in Hospitals, Rules for Survival. And one of the things we did at one point was geofence UCLA. And if you walked into UCLA, the first thing to pop up on Facebook for the next 2 hours was our book, which wasn't, as it turns out, really popular with UCLA, to go over the 101 things that can go wrong in the hospital, including getting elective surgery on a Friday and so forth. So how are you using social media? How are you letting people know? You have a website, Facebook page, Instagram, Snapchat. I can't keep track of all of them.
We have a website, and we're on Facebook. Really, we've just been word of mouth. Doctors and discharge planners and hospitals have really partnered with us and wanted to use us, but we haven't dove in yet to the Snapchat and the Instagrams. But
well, one thing we went for was the caregivers page. So not so much the patient going in the hospital, but those incredibly worried children of the patients. And they really wanted a guide that said, hey, get your $10 to take to the gift shop and be sure and bring your Apple charge cord and then have something to mark that limb so they don't cut off the wrong one. And here's a little diary. So really picking that right market. So you live in San Diego?
Yeah, I live in San Diego.
And so so you have a sales territory?
We cover San Diego, Riverside, Orange County, and LA County right now, and we're going into the Ventura, Santa Barbara counties.
Mm-hmm. So that's we're doing our best with Amanda to get you up here. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? In the old days, you'd bring in a tall blonde and a bottle of whiskey and know the names of their kids and some donuts or cookies for the rest of the staff. And does it still work that way?
No, not at all. Well, we don't do that. What we try to work with is foundations, and because a lot of times people will donate to hospitals and there's a level of expectation of care, and we help really facilitate that and make sure that those people get taken care of, and that has turned into other clients and other nurses and doctors reaching out to us and wanting to use our services. So we have a very different marketing strategy. It's based on quality, and we're very proud of that.
For some reason, I'm getting a postcard about every other day about cremation services, which I kind of resent, frankly, and that and the hearing aid, of course. So do you send out cards, or do you have community doctors talk, or?
No, we don't. Not yet.
Okay, so
Yeah.
mainly, and what kind of foundations then? These are?
Usually foundations like for Eisenhower is a really big customer of ours, and they have a foundation that is called 24/7. They have 12 nurses that are working around the clock, and they have a special, the people who donate to the foundation and are part of the foundation go through that sector of the hospital and so forth. So,
All right.
yeah.
Well, Luke Scott, thank you so much for
you.
telling us all about Concierge Nursing.
Yeah.
Ventura, you've heard about BodiMetrics with Neil Friedman, all the different devices. We can keep people in the home. You can learn more about your health. If you can't manage your own health, we have Concierge Direct Nursing. And really, this is a commitment to the community. It's a commitment to the future of health. There's high tech, which we've touched on, but without high tech is missing something. So we have an app for everything, but we really need to have some assistance with human beings here. When I was up in Canada, they said, gosh, we're getting 300 blood pressure readings every Monday. Thanks, Dr. Landon, we don't really want your device. But we really need that doctor talking to that patient, knowing what's happening in the home, support from nursing. So Ventura, really, it's time for you to stay home, but get moving.